Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1308A, and today's date is June 16th, 2017, and the title of the episode is, Every Time This Economic Indicator Inverts, We Are Headed for an Economic Disaster. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, we are getting more and more economic data in, and we know the corporate media, they're using the stats saying, yes, unemployment is low, everything looks great, the Fed is telling everyone that it looks great. Even Trump is out there. He's saying that the stock market is up, the economy's doing well, unemployment is very low, and he's promising to bring back all these jobs. And I'll explain his strategy of why he is saying this a little bit later in this report. But let's look at some of the economic indicators here. First, we have existing home sales, which are declining. We have new home sales, which are declining right now. We have, for the first time since January of 2009, housing starts. They dropped for the third month in a row in May, and they completely missed expectations of a positive 4.1%. It was down negative 5.5%. Building permits also tumbled in May, and they missed expectations. So we're seeing the housing market completely implode on itself. And this is the lowest level for overall housing starts since 2016. So what is going on here? Well, we've been receiving really bad economic data. We know a lot of retail stores are closing, corporations laying off, and most of the statistics that the U.S. government, the Fed, puts out, well, they're completely manipulated. And we know that the Fed, well, they raised the interest rates once again. Now, we need to understand something. They already started the process of bringing down the economy. All they've done was accelerate it now. Now, remember, this period of time in real estate is supposed to be the best time in real estate, spring, summer. This is when people want to get into their homes. They want to set up their homes. People like the warm weather. There are flowers in front of the houses. It makes it much easier to move into a home, and they want to get into the home before school starts. What we're seeing right now is that the housing market, well, it's imploding on itself during the best time. Just like we saw the retail industry implode on itself during the best time, which is the holiday season. And this is just going to get worse because what's happening right now is the interest rates have been moving up. Mortgage applications have been declining. It pushes individuals completely out of the market. And what we see now is traffic is drying up. And if you look around the country, just go onto Zillow, yes, there's still places where you're still going to see real estate booming. Those places where they've been booming for quite a while, they'll take a little bit longer, but they're going to be hit very, very hard. Look back to 2007, 2008, and just look in Miami area where there were cranes all over the place. There were condos being built like crazy. And it was booming. It was speculators like you've never seen before. And then all of a sudden it came crashing down, and it was a lot worse than almost every other place. And we could see right now this is going to spread into every single area. And it's just going to get worse. Actually, the New York Fed, they've already adjusted their second quarter GDP. And they started out at 3%. They're down to 1.86% right now. And believe me, it's going to go much, much lower. We also see the Atlanta Fed right now. They have adjusted their information on the GDP, their estimates. And we see they started at 4, then they went down to 3.2. Now they're down to 2.878. And we can see this is continually going lower and lower. And when we look at this, we see the hard data points. Well, they are continually declining. Even the soft data now is declining at the same rate. So what we're seeing is everything starting to fall apart very, very quickly. Now, one thing that we've been looking at, and these are the different economic indicators, and each one tells us a story. Well, we're heading into a collapse. Now, every time the Fed tightens and we look back in time, we see that we enter some type of recession or depression. Well, they're tightening once again, and they only can drive the interest rates up to a certain point until everything falls apart. And we've been looking at the inverted yield curve. Now, we mentioned this before, and This happened 7 times in a row. And every time the yield curve inverted, we went into a recession or depression. So this is a very good indicator to let us know where we are headed. And right now, for those who are not familiar with the terminology of an inverted yield curve, when we talk about a yield curve, we're typically talking about the spread between 2-year and 10-year U.S. Treasury bond yields. Normally, long-term rates are higher than the short-term rates, but when investors get spooked about the economy, this can reverse. Just before every single recession since the 60s, the yield curve has inverted, and now we are getting dangerously close to it happening again for the first time in a decade. So what we've seen on Thursday is that the spread between the 2-year and 10-year treasuries dropped to just 79 basis points. This is almost the tightest the yield curve has been since 2007. So why is an inverted yield curve such a big event? Because when bank assets generate less income than the bank liabilities, the incentive to make new loans dries up along with the money supply. And when asset bubbles are starved of that monetary fuel, they burst. The severity of the recession depends on the intensity of the asset bubbles in existence prior to the inversion. What did we see a couple days ago? Loan creation stalling and declining. What else did we see? We saw the credit impulse going negative. In January it's at -1, now it's at -3. So what's truly alarming is that the Federal Reserve, they see what's happening. They see what's happening with the yield curve. They see what's happening with the other economic indicators. And what did they decide to do? They decided to raise the rates. They know right now that this will bring down the economy. And they're not just raising the rates. They're going beyond this. They've declared that they're going to unwind their $4.5 trillion worth of assets that they've accumulated since the Great Recession. I mean, this is going to be a complete and utter disaster. And we could see that Trump, he's playing into this. Think about this. How difficult would it be to bring down an economy? Yes, he can get rid of the Fed. He can take out his pen. He has the power to do this. And the Fed will be gone. But do you think the deep state, the elite, the central bankers will allow this? Well, let's see. JFK tried to create silver certificates. What happened to him? He was killed. President Lincoln had the greenback, printing currency outside of the central banking system. Well, he was killed. Andrew Jackson, actually he succeeded, but they attempted to murder him, to kill him, to assassinate him, but it didn't work. And he eventually got rid of the central bank. Can Trump just go ahead and do this? No, most likely they will try to get rid of him in a split second. So what strategy would you use to turn it around and blame everything on the Fed? Now, the Fed has been controlling the economy, right? They've been controlling the interest rates. They've been controlling the money supply. They've been telling us how great the economy is doing. Now, he is out there telling us that the stock market's doing well, I'm bringing back jobs. When the economy falls, how easy would it be for Trump to say to the Fed, listen, you were controlling the money supply. You were controlling the interest rates. You're the one who decided to raise the interest rates during this period of time. You've been telling the American public, and of course I believed you, that if the stock market goes up, the economy's doing well. I was trying to bring back jobs, and the economy crashed. Now, of course, the central bank can turn around and say, well, it was because of your economic policy. That's why it crashed. Now, Trump could say, point out which area of my economic policy crashed the economy. Because what have I done so far since I've been in office? I promised jobs to come back to the United States. What else have I done? There's nothing to point to. He can turn around and say, I didn't do anything. I promised these jobs. I want to bring them back because you told us the economy was strong. You said it was strong enough to raise the rates. And now here we are. This argument is a lot better to use to get rid of the Fed. They're the ones who were controlling the economy, and he can make a case and bring people in agreement. Now, this is not going to be easy. Look what happened with Comey. I mean, we had Rosenstein, we had A.J. Sessions, they wrote up a letter, they made recommendations, and look what's happening. This is not going to be an easy task. Look what happened in the past. They got rid of those individuals that try to get rid of the central banking system. And we could see right now, he needs to keep this front, he needs to keep the front up and keep the illusion alive. He needs to gain the narrative and turn it around. He needs to make it look like the Fed, well, they were the real controller of the economy. He has a better case. For all these years, you've been telling us the economy's doing great. If we just reach 6%, the economy is fantastic. If we reach 5% unemployment, the economy's doing fantastic. There's no inflation. He'll be able to use this to convince those in power, and most of those powers are on the take by the central bank, by corporations. It's not going to be easy, but you could see how this strategy is being formed right now. And all these jobs and everything that he wants to do, it can't be done in this economy. This economy needs to be wiped out. It's impossible to bring all of this in with the debt level, with the manipulation, with people in government being paid off, with the fake news, with the lies. It's completely impossible. One thing we know for sure, though, is that this economy, it's not going to survive. It's not going to work. And one other thing I wanted to say. Remember how the central bank, the IMF, and the rest of these financial banks, institutions keep saying that the GDP is going to be very high? Well, he's using that to his benefit because he's taking the estimates from them. Well, the estimate is going to be 3%. The estimate, you told us this is what it was going to be. I'm going by your calculations. You've been telling me that this is what the economy is going to do. Why isn't it? The IMF is out there. They estimate what the GDP is going to be. The Fed comes out and says, we believe this is what it's going to be. Why isn't it? And he can use all of this to bring down the central banking system. And this is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the narrative. Gaining control. And we have both sides trying to gain control, and they're going to use it to try to convince the public of what happened here. And this is what we're seeing being played out right in front of us. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.